What you have just heard, listeners, all over the world, is a warning. And you will hear this warning from here on out. You've been listening to your leaders tell you that there's a great move towards democracy in the world. You witnessed the parting of the Iron Curtain, the fall of the Berlin Wall, the fracturing of the Soviet Union. And this is all supposedly toward a new worldwide democracy. Democracy is a code word for socialism, and that's why our forefathers established a republic. But don't get down, folks. All is not lost.
I'm coming back.
The problem lies within each and every one of you, and therein also lies the answer. I'm your host, William Cooper, and you're listening to the Hour of the Time.
Crazy! And that's how it goes. You never ever know about the NWO. I'm deep behind enemy lines for November 30th, 2020, just a little bit before 3 p.m. And, well, hey, things, boy, never stay the same. Changes everywhere. And once again, I got so much news to back in and bring you up to speed with. My computer crashes and dies all the time trying to compress it all, or calculate it all. Well, anyways, news breaking here at No Link News. You just need to understand that the election recount in Georgia is been delayed. The Trump team seems to they have found problems with the Dominion servers. Maybe you've not heard this yet, but latest news in the round that headline is Georgia County delayed by Dominion server crash, officials say. And the other headline in the mix, Dominion server judge, a judge has froze voting machines in 3 Georgia counties. More changes and geopolitical upheaval, and another update to the New World Order from the No Link News Desk. Move over, Harp-Tard, so you'll not see this as earthquake news or earthquake prediction by Doomsday Disinfo Dumbass Dutchie. So in case you miss it, or you want to wait around for sloppy seconds from Dumbass Doomsday Disinfo Dutchie, let's get to the science of things today. The United States election officials are fighting. Trump lawyers are fighting to overturn the election results. And I just heard moments ago that Georgia has now certified the state of Georgia for Joe Biden. Even though widespread voting machine problems are still occurring. Okay. Now, I need to transition over and bring you in and show you the data. As you all well know, the day before Thanksgiving, Sidney Powell, she filed a lawsuit in the state of Georgia. And just before, over the weekend, the developing story as I try to bring you up to speed on the fact that her defense team is going to, got one heck of powerhouse as far as credibility goes. So in this lawsuit, she's going to bring several actions of massive election fraud, and I'm going to show you some of these cases here as the mathematical impossibilities now have gave the state of Georgia, the election officials, to Joe Biden. A civil action And the plaintiff's burden is proof of preponderance of the evidence to show that the Supreme Court has made it clear that the votes had irregularities and ballots that were double voting ballots, double ballots. So the scheme, the artifice to defraud was for the purpose of illegally and fraudulently manipulating the vote to count to make certain that the election of Joe Biden, the President of the United States. The fraud was executed by many means, but the most fundamentally troubling, insidious, and erroneous is the systematic adoption of the old-fashioned ballot stuffing. It has been amplified and rendered virtually invisible by computer software created and run by domestic and foreign actors for that very purpose. Mathematical and statistical anomalies rising to the level of impossibilities, as shown by affidavits of multiple witnesses and documentation and expert testimony, evidence this scheme across the state of Georgia. Especially erroneous conduct arose in Forsyth, Paulding, Cherokee, Hall, and Barrow County. This scheme and artifice to defraud affected tens of thousands of votes in Georgia alone and rigged the election in Georgia for Joe Biden. This massive fraud begins with the election software and hardware from Dominion Voting Systems Corporation, known as Dominion, only recently purchased and rushed into use by defendants Governor Brian Kemp, Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger, and the Georgia Board of Elections. Sequoia voting machines were used in 16 states and District of Columbia in 2006. Smartmatic, which has revenue of about $100 million, focuses on Venezuela and other markets outside the United States. After selling Sequoia, Smartmatic's chief executive Anthony Mr. Machia said he hoped that Smartmatic would work with Sequoia on projects in the United States through Smartmatic wouldn't take an equity stake. Smartmatic and Dominion were founded by foreign oligarchs and dictators to ensure computerized ballot stuffing and vote manipulation to whatever level was needed to make certain Venezuelan dictator Hugo Chavez never lost another election. And many of you may have saw, yeah, the revolution will not be televised. The famous documentary on the socialist takeover of Venezuela by dictator Hugo Chavez. As set forth, in the accompanying whistleblower affidavit, the Smartmatic software was designed to manipulate Venezuelan elections in favor of Hugo Chavez. Well, as a matter of fact, I got proof of that right here somewhere. Yeah, I got proof of that right here. Hold on a second. Suspicious, maybe. Oh, I did shut it out. Dang it, man. No, I'll go back to it later. I got proof of that. So anyways, here's a copy. There's 104 pages. I'm not going to get into this whole case, but to lead it to be said that you never know about the New World Order and how, like I was claiming, a judge in this lawsuit has frozen the voting machines in 3 Georgia counties. Here's a copy of that lawsuit. Plaintiffs, okay, who's in this, Jack? Plaintiffs. No, I don't see Sidney Powell on this civil action filing. Plaintiffs have filed an emergency motion for temporary injunctive relief. In their motion, plaintiffs seek order directing defendants to allow plaintiffs to inspect Dominion voting machines in Cobb, Gwinnett, and Cherokee counties. The court conducted a Zoom meeting at 7:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to consider plaintiffs' motions. During the hearing, defendants' counsel argued that the Secretary of State has no lawful authority over the county election officials, citing Jacobson versus Florida Secretary of State 974 F.3D 1236, citing 1256-58. 11th Circuit, 2020. Plaintiff's counsel responded that plaintiffs could amend their complaint to add the election officials in Cobb, Gwinnett, and Cherokee counties, thus obviating the issues of whether the proper officials have been named as defendants in this case. So, the defendants in this case are Brian Kemp, the governor, and Secretary of State David Raffensperger, Rebecca Worley, Matthew Sullivan, and Mashburn, and ANHLE. Okay. What does this mean? Based on the scant evidence that the firm's foreign ties allowed hostile governments to meddle with the United States election via a conspiracy that involved both Democratic and Republican U.S. officials. Here's what Sidney Powell was going to release the Kraken on, and there you get it right now. Here it is in the Politico. Today's news. While many Democratic and some Republican officials have dismissed Powell's claims as a fantasy, some GOP leaders are now warning that the effort to choke out that, well, hey, they need a restraining order, and they were going to wipe these machines clean, and that's where the evidence is. And allowing the altercation, destruction, and erasure of software or data on any Dominion voting machine. Man. So according to these defendants in the suit, the four other members of the Georgia election boards argued that the court had no jurisdiction over the counties because they're not parties to the case. But the judge did agree to receive a brief by Wednesday afternoon from the governor and the Secretary of State detailing the reasons why they oppose allowing Sidney Powell's team to conduct forensic inspections of the machines in 3 counties. So there you go. Yeah. So this lawsuit is in conjunction with Sidney Powell releasing the Kraken, and that Kraken once again ties into Dominion voting systems and Smartmatic voting machines, which is what I pointed out, and now I'm going to show you. Oh, so no thanks to the Dominion voting machines. I mean, if you wanted to run a clean election, well, why not this news today?
Counting ballots for a third time. Fulton County election workers will get back to it this morning, trying to make up for lost time after technical problems forced the county to stop yesterday. Chrissy Diaz live outside the Georgia World Congress Center with much more on what happened.
Fulton County worked through the weekend to continue the statewide recount, but they had a small hang-up yesterday when a, quote, newly purchased Dominion mobile server crashed. They brought out technicians to help fix the problem, but it stopped the counting for the rest of Sunday afternoon. Fulton says they've counted about 88% of the ballots, all of the absentee, early in-person, and provisional ballots. The counting will begin again this morning. Again, all counties in Georgia have to finish up by a hard deadline of midnight on Wednesday. Sheba.
Amazing. Georgia recount goes, oh my goodness, the Dominion voting machines
Workers putting
messed
in
up.
extra hours to count ballots for the.
Okay, well, let's scroll down here. Let's see this one here. Okay, what this added in?
But here's the thing: there were no Dominion issues in Fulton County. There was a Dominion server that crashed because Fulton County literally ignored the basic instructions and the directions of the vendor on this one. They were given what is called an express server to do LNA, which is logic and accuracy testing, on the machines they're going to be using for the election tomorrow, basically. And they instead decided hey, we're going to use this for the recount, when they should have been using their central server. So what happened was they built the first cards out of their central servers. This is going to get deep in the weeds, and I apologize for that. So they built, I think it was 7 cards. I'm not exactly positive, and they were intended for absentee by mail scanning. You have to set up each one of the tabulators differently in order to keep the bucket straight of the 4 different types of ballots. Let's go through those again. There's election day ballots, provisional ballots, early voting, which is absentee in person, and then the absentee by mail ballots. There's 4 basic buckets, so that's the tabulators they had to do. So what they did, kind of cutting a corner, their intention was, we're going to use the express server as the one we upload all the stuff into. And there was a Dominion employee there that says, you can't do that because it will crash that server. So they said, okay, well, we're going to put the database on here and we're going to tabulators off of this. But then they didn't follow procedure and did not back up that thing. Actually, I take it back. They did back it up, but they did it on the same drive. So when that server crashed, that computer crashed, it's really just a computer like this. It's just a simple laptop computer. And it crashed, so they could not get that database off. Because once you make the tabulator on the new database, the timestamp is different than the original database you had. So you can't then upload it because that's a security measure, because you don't want to have something that wasn't created in the right place that can then upload into your existing election project. So again, Fulton County, one particular technician ignored the directives of our office, ignored the opinion and directions from the vendor, and caused this situation by ignoring that and choosing to go their own path, even though they were told don't do that. So now they're going to be forced to rescan ballots. It has nothing to do with servers being wiped. Nobody directed that. That's just a lie. It's made up out of whole cloth, and it's the kind of stuff we're having to deal with. So that's the situation we're in right now, but that's what really happened. Does that give you a better clarification as to what happened? It won't impact the results. It's more work and more man hours and more time, which is the kind of thing you often find when you cut corners, you end up adding cost and time because you cut corners. And that's what happened in this case in Fulton County, which every other county's managed to pull this off pretty well. Fulton County on this one particular thing didn't get it right because one technician was there. And then they compounded the error by sitting there for 4 hours yesterday and not explaining to the press and to the observers there what was happening, which led to rampant speculation, and then where we get some of these lies about the secretary ordering servers to be wiped, because it's just not true.
It's not true. Well, yeah. That's why a judge is, ordering the servers not to be wiped. And then now add into this.
Trump lashes out at Georgia's Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, and
what happened there?
Governor Brian
The Biden campaign moves forward. Election workers here in Georgia putting in all of those extra hours this weekend to count the ballots for the presidential election for a third time.
This character in Georgia who's a disaster, and the governor's done nothing. He's done absolutely nothing. I'm ashamed that I endorsed it.
We have reached out to the offices of Kemp and Raffensperger for a response. Last week, Kemp said he continues to stand with the president and that he will continue to follow the law. Raffensperger wrote in a USA Today editorial published Wednesday that he voted for President Trump and now he feels like he's being thrown under the bus. The president will visit Georgia on Saturday.
Okay. Now, I love how those videos just pop up and start playing.
This comes after President Trump requested a recount last Saturday. Yesterday, Fulton County resumed its recount after taking a couple of days off for Thanksgiving. DeKalb County said right now they're ahead of schedule and they will take today off and resume again tomorrow. Both Cobb and Gwinnett are also expected to start again on Monday. All Georgia counties must be done Wednesday before midnight. The Secretary of State's office says they don't expect the results to change much from their previous counts.
But needless to say, the machines that count them, they seem to be fallible and cause errors. And needless to say, the arguments on this case seem to be overwhelming for Trump. But why is it he can't get anyone interested in the courts to hear his case? I'm not.
With Thanksgiving now behind us, it is full steam ahead as Georgia works to complete its third count of the presidential election. Counties were allowed to begin the machine count on Tuesday, and our Mara Siriani explains where the count currently stands.
Because the Secretary of State's office knew the Thanksgiving holiday would disrupt Georgia's machine recount, they went ahead and told each county to post publicly when they plan to pick back up. That way, monitors and members of the public can observe. Fulton County began its machine recount Wednesday. At last check, they plan to continue tomorrow at 7 a.m. Elections officials in DeKalb County said they resumed at 7 o'clock this morning. Clayton resumed at 9. Both Cobb and Gwinnett counties are expected to resume Monday. Last Thursday, elections officials announced the results of the hand retally, which stemmed from an audit, but as the Secretary of State's office explains, was not considered an official recount under state law. According to state elections board rules, an official recount must be conducted by high-speed scanners. Raffensperger's office says it's possible the results could be slightly different from the original tally, but the overall count would likely remain unaffected.
Okay, those high-speed scanners are made by Smartmatic. We can probably type that up, maybe, show you, huh? Yeah. Maybe those scanners need to be looked at too, right? Smartmatic. Optical scanners. You just saw what they looked like. The election integrity is now quicker and faster and can verify those results because they can read them ballots more accurately than a human. That's what we're putting all our faith into, is those scanners. Are they properly? Are they optimized? Well, I can't guarantee. These scanners cause problems when you send the data to the server, but it could possibly be part of the problem too. Just pointing out, this is from Smartmatic's own website. Oh. There we go. Now you see what I'm talking about. Huh. There we get the logo of Smartmatic in there on their Smartmatic ballot scanner machines, efficiently maintaining how ballot scanners are audited. So, now the question is, moving on into the mix. The attorney that is filing these lawsuits, along with Sidney Powell releasing the Kraken, questions the state attorney general and the governor. And many of you may have not seen this over the weekend, but I'll bring this scene up to you here in just a second.
Where's his house? Which one's his house? Where the cop is? Which, up here?
Where the cop is, she said. I'll turn around.
Yeah.
There you go.
Where's the cop?
Up here where the cop is, up here on the hill, I guess.
Okay, you can get this.
I got it. Then put these on. Where the cop is, she said. I'll turn around.
Yeah.
There you go.
Where's the cop?
Up here where the cop is, up here on the hill, I guess.
Okay, you can get this.
I got it.
Yeah, they got it. Those are Georgia patriots paying a visit to the Secretary of State of Georgia in Atlanta. Someone needs to come out of his basement and explain why Dominion voting machines purchased in a backroom deal with Hillary's law firm on absentee ballots. Keep blowing them horns there, MAGA supporters. Yeah. So there you go. You never know. Deeply thankful for attorney Lynn Wood. You won't want to mess with this guy. He's obviously, he's going to release Kraken with Sidney Powell. And they're blowing up the state of Georgia today, this morning, I see. Yeah, no doubt about it. Biden's going to have to choose a new White House to move into, it looks like, from what Lynn Wood is explaining here. fighting back. Don't be fearless. He tweeted on December 31st, 2019, that 2020 would be the year our country would see things more clearly. So how you feeling about Attorney Lynn Wood's prediction so far? Remember, 2020 isn't over yet, and there are difficult days ahead, but the best is yet to come. And here we come. You never know. The best is yet to come. We'll take a little station identification break here and prepare you for the next segment of today's show. Yep, now I'm back. Sorry, I had to move over here and transition this into a pattern of lies, fraud, and a cover-up. For the sake of the people, the Republic, John F. Clay, Twitter, Facebook, Google running the information warfare. Question has to be, once again asked, with Dominion voting systems and documentation proven leading to who runs Smartmatic voting machines? I think it's about time we open up this a little more, knowing the fact that the battle to overturn election theft moves from the courts to the legislators. Maybe
the Biden usurpation. But nonetheless, there they were out in the open, parading what their plans for the world are, which is to eliminate whatever final vestiges of national sovereignty we might have by giving all power to central bankers, by giving them the ability to create digital currencies by which they can circumvent whatever control sovereign nations might still have over their currency, and to use their green finance initiative to strangle any remaining investment in industry, modern industry, and modern agriculture. Of course, as many of you probably know or certainly suspect, this grouping intends to reduce the world's population to 1 or 2 billion people. And of course, having Prince Charles attending this Green Horizon Summit leaves no doubt that that is their policy. Prince Charles and his father are both on record saying such wonderful things as the human race is like a herd of sheep and someone has to cull the herd. Or as Prince Philip said, I would like to come back as a deadly virus and help solve the overpopulation problem. One has to wonder if perhaps he's already been reincarnated as the COVID virus. But that is the face of the enemy, directly planted in London, openly co-sponsored by the City of London Corporation. Now, many of you, perhaps like me, when you heard the term City of London, thought it was sort of a generic term like Wall Street, capturing the financial elite of the United States. The City of London is actually a corporation. It is an independent entity which has used that independence to circumvent important policies of nations, including going all the way back to 1971, when Richard Nixon was forced to take the dollar off the gold reserve standard. That was a result of an assault on the US dollar carried out directly by the City of London. So I go through this because I think it's very critical for everybody on this call to understand the actual face of the enemy. Because the only way that we can successfully win the battle for the presidency is to understand that it is part of a war of sovereign nations, ours most especially because we're living here, but of every sovereign nation against this global financier elite. And that is what is really at stake in the fight which is before us today. Now, I want to counterpose briefly the tremendous potential of a second Trump administration, which I think has already manifested itself with the successful launch on Sunday, of the SpaceX launch of 4 astronauts, including one from Japan, to the International Space Station. This is what the British Empire is afraid of. It's afraid of mankind extending its knowledge of the universe, moving into the solar system, exerting greater dominion over nature through the exercise of scientific breakthroughs and the discovery of new universal principles. And as Bob will, I suspect, go through in the second part of this discussion, this is really the core of the founding of the American Republic, which is why the person of Benjamin Franklin is such a seminal figure in both the decades-long organizing process, which he engaged in, which led to the American Revolution, and the actual philosophical content of what that revolution is really all about. And again, I submit that to effectively fight the battles before us, which of course include the vote fraud fight in many, many different forms, includes the public demonstrations for the president, as we saw this last weekend in extraordinary outpourings of support for the president in Washington, D.C., in Lansing, and throughout the country. We have to keep the larger battle in mind from the standpoint of what it is going to take to ultimately win the war. Ensuring the president's second term is critical in doing that. But winning the war means equipping this nation and other nations with the policies that can actually take the economic and financial power away from that global financial elite. That's what Lyndon LaRouche fought for his entire life. He bequeathed us policies embodied in what he called his 4 laws for economic development, which included a national bank, which included the issuance of credit through such a national bank for scientific breakthroughs, for infrastructure projects, for the kinds of things that President Trump has wanted to do and has been prevented from doing by the continuing control of Wall Street and the City of London. That's the task of a second term. And to work with other nations to shut down this global casino economy and replace it with an economic system based on sovereignty and economic development, such that we can address the crying needs of this planet, including starvation in Africa, including the inability to deal with any diseases in many parts of the world because of the abysmal lack of development as a result of the control of the modern day British Empire. Now, let me just briefly give people a sense of the state of the battle against not just the fraud, but against what I would call the coup apparatus, and then turn the discussion over to my friend Bob to address the deeper implications of the American Revolution and its ancient enemy, the British Empire. But in addition to the breakthroughs that I think people are familiar with around the vote fraud fight, I think the other very singular development, which people have to be aware of, is what the president is doing in his shakeup of the Pentagon. His firing of Esper, who like too many others in the Trump administration, had a completely contrary policy to the president. The president, of course, is pledged to end the endless wars, and he has been fought every step of the way by people like Esper, by the unlamented, now gone John Bolton, by the unfortunately still in office Mike Pompeo. These people have prevented what the president and his new defense secretary are now moving rapidly to do, which is to get US troops out of these decades-long wars in Southwest Asia. But there's much more going on in terms of this Pentagon shakeup than just the president being able to fulfill his campaign promise and his intention to bring our troops home. Because as some of you may know, we and others have been in the forefront in recent months of warning of the danger of a military coup against the president were he to resist illegal efforts to throw him out of office. Our longtime friend, retired Colonel Richard Black, in September issued such a warning, which we were able to post and get wide circulation on YouTube through interviews and so on. And the president's move in firing Esper and putting someone, Christopher Miller, in office who is loyal to him was noted even by a former high-ranking German defense minister, Willy Wimmer, who last week said, I think very accurately, that Trump's move to get rid of Esper and put Miller in was to forestall the danger of a military coup against him. And I think that's a very accurate assessment. Because besides Miller, a number of other key people have been brought in positions of senior advisor to the defense secretary, undersecretaries of defense, and other positions in the Defense Department and the National Security Agency are now being staffed by people who have been in the forefront of fighting against the coup. One person in particular had been prepared to serve under General Michael Flynn in the National Security Council. Of course, when Flynn had his head cut off, that didn't happen. He's now in a leading position in the Pentagon. Other people worked with Devin Nunes in the House Intelligence Committee, investigating and exposing elements of the coup. One of the key figures who has been brought in as a special assistant to the president is well known as an opponent of John Bolton and Mike Pompeo and their war hawk policies. And significantly, one of the other new appointees is a special assistant to the head of the National Security Agency. The head of the National Security Agency, Nakasone, has been one of the people stonewalling the president's request to declassify the documents, which will show people that he has been the subject of an ongoing coup. So Nakasone has now been forced to accept as his top assistant, chief of staff, someone who is loyal to the president. And I might also add, the National Security Agency has to report directly to the defense secretary. So perhaps the head of the NSA may not be around much longer, or maybe he'll just start following actual orders from his higher ups. And I suspect that people saw yesterday, the president went into full apprentice mode and declared, "You're fired," to Krebs, the head of cybersecurity at the NSA, who had come up with the completely outrageous statement that there was no vote fraud in this election. So if you look at what has happened in terms of this sweeping changes in the Pentagon and parallel actions around the National Security Agency, you can see that the president is completely loaded for bear and ready to now go for the jugular in terms of exposing, getting the documents out, cleaning out the coup apparatus, and beginning to ensure that the Constitution of the United States is not going to be threatened by the Pentagon and the National Security Agency as it has been, but rather is going to be defended by the Pentagon and the National Security Agency as it should be. So the question of full declassification of the documents is going to be a critical element, I think, in these coming days ahead. But I think it does demonstrate that we are in for an extraordinary period of time. And I will just say, before I turn it over to Bob to deepen the discussion in terms of what it is for which we are actually fighting. I mean, yes, it's the person of Donald Trump because he's a unique, extraordinary individual at a unique, extraordinary moment in time. But obviously, we're fighting for something much bigger than just one person. We're fighting for the very principles of our republic. And the more we rededicate ourselves to that and rediscover those principles, the more effective we will be. And I think that is what we have begun to see in terms of the spirit of what is unfolding on the streets of the United States. Because I do not think the British oligarchy expected, number one, the American people to cut through all the psychological warfare, all the disruptions of our economy, everything that's happened to us over the months of 2020. I don't think they expected the American people to go out and vote for Donald Trump in the droves that they did. And of course, Sidney Powell is saying 80 million Americans voted for Donald Trump. They didn't expect that. They might have expected Trump to fight, because that does seem to be his nature. So I won't say they didn't expect him to fight, but I do not think that they expected the tens of millions of Americans who are standing strong with the president, who are refusing to capitulate to the psychological warfare, that it's all over, that they should concede. I don't think they expected any of that. And I think that's happening because something very profound is being reawakened in the American population. And in fact, the president's lawyer, Sidney Powell herself, put it in the terms of, we are on the cusp of a new American revolution. So I want to conclude my remarks with that and turn the discussion over to my friend Bob Ingram, who is addressing us from the left coast, from Oakland, California. Bob has done extraordinary work on the real history of the United States. In fact, I have a chance to make a recommendation. The president has established a 1776 commission to reintroduce, especially American young people, to the actual history of the United States. If I ever have my say on that, I'm going to strongly recommend that he put Bob Ingram on that commission.
God bless the Republic.
Let me turn it over to Bob.
Yes, to the New World Order. We shall prevail, ladies and gentlemen. The Empire is on the run.
And we are on the march, day and night.
Hoorah. Thank you, gentlemen. Guys, we'll be back at 8 o'clock. Meanwhile, BC coming up next. Don't you touch that dial, because we got a lot more live radio on Liberty Tree Radio.
Plant the seed in our homeland, boys. Let it grow where all can see. Feed it with our devotion, boys. Call it the Liberty Tree. It's a tall old tree and a strong old tree. And we are the sons, yes, we are the sons of liberty. Save it from the storm, boys. Water down its roots with tea. And the sun will always shine on the old Liberty Tree. It's a tall old tree and a strong old tree. And we are the sons, yes, we are the sons of liberty. March along with the piper, boys. We were born forever free. Let's go pay the piper, boys, beneath the Liberty Tree. It's a tall old tree and a strong old tree. And we are the sons, yes, we are the sons of liberty. Pay the price they're asking, boys. Always pay the tyrant's fee. Never.
Bringing you the sound of the revolution. Thank you for listening to LibertyTreeRadio.4mg.com.
We all